Close your eyes for a moment, if you will, and let's transport ourselves. It's a bitter November night, deep within the American Great Plains. Sometime in the rugged 1840s, a raw, unforgiving cold has settled in, plummeting the air to a brutal 10 degrees below zero. Can you feel that icy bite? A relentless wind carrying the stark scent of frozen earth and the whisper of impending snow scours the vast open grassland. For miles and miles, there's not a single structure you'd call home, no familiar refuge. Yet there, against the immense inky canvas of the night, a small cluster of conical shapes huddles together. The tipis, their walls, made of cured buffalo hide, are the sole fragile shield separating sleeping families from a cold that promises death. How, you might wonder, did they manage? How could whole communities not just endure, but truly live rich, intricate lives through such brutal winters, sheltered by what seems, to our modern eyes, to be little more than stretched animal skins? It's a question that hums with wonder, isn't it? The secret, it turns out, is a lost art, a profound mastery of warmth and shelter passed down through countless generations, challenging every preconceived notion we hold about comfort and survival. So, let's leave our modern conveniences behind, shall we? Dim the mental lights, let a gentle hum fill the background, and allow ourselves to sink into a different reality. This isn't a world where warmth is just a switch you flip. It's an intricate art form, a daily performance, where the line between comfort and catastrophe is as thin as a winter breath held in the very bones of your ancestors. We're dropping into late October of 1847, right into a Lakota winter camp nestled along the winding Powder River. Look up, the sky hangs like tarnished pewter, heavy and low, hinting at snow, maybe even before dawn. You can almost taste it, that sharp, metallic temps in the air that seems to make your very teeth ache. Your breath, a constant stream of small, vaporous clouds, dances before your face as you work. Your hands, despite the thick buffalo hide mittens your mother lovingly crafted last spring, already feel stiff, a testament to the pervasive chill. You're 16 winters old now, an age of emerging responsibility, yet your body still protests the relentless cold every single day. Since the first golden leaves began to fall, your very existence hinges on countless small tasks, each demanding precision, each demanding respect. That omnipresent wind, a constant companion out here, sighs and moans across the vast, treeless prairie. It carries the faint, melancholic scent of dying grasses, mingling with the crisp, clean promise of more snow from far-off storm clouds. This wind isn't just air moving. It's a living, hungry entity, relentlessly probing for any weakness, any tiny gap in your carefully constructed layers of warmth. It snakes its icy tendrils between the edge of your moccasins and your leggings, seeks out the vulnerable skin where your hide sleeves meet your wrists, and dances around your neck, despite the fur collar you've pulled high against your chin. It's always searching, always looking to steal away the precious warmth your body so desperately generates. So, your first critical task this morning was the hunt for fuel. Not wood, not yet, but buffalo chips, the dried dung that burns with a slow, steady, invaluable heat. You've been at it since before the first hint of light, steadily filling your sturdy parfleche bag with these brown discs, the lifeblood that will keep your family's central fire breathing through another endless night. Your fingers, despite the protective mittens, are growing numb, but you know each chip by its unique feel. The very old ones, brittle and crumbly, are useless for sustained heat. The hard, dense ones, gathered during the long, hot summer, are like precious wood, perfect for hours of slow burning. And those that unfortunately caught the last rain are damp, heavy, yet you gather them all the same, knowing they'll eventually dry by the fire's warmth. Nothing, absolutely nothing, can be wasted out here in this vast, unforgiving emptiness of the plains. Isn't it true that in such a world, waste isn't merely inefficiency, it's truly a sentence of death? Now, picture yourself, if you will, crouching low beside the tipi your family calls home. Its 20 buffalo hides, painstakingly sewn together with sinew, stretched taut over 15 strong lodge poles, each reaching 20 feet into the sky. It's a marvel of engineering, capable of being dismantled and packed in under an hour. Yet for now, it is your entire world. 12 feet across at its base, this conical sanctuary tapers upwards to a small smoke hole, through which you can just glimpse a small gray patch of sky. Your mother emerges from the entrance, the hide flap falling back into place behind her with a soft, leathery sigh. She carries a buffalo paunch, now a makeshift kettle, brimming with water from which wisps of steam lazily curl upwards. Even something as seemingly simple as heating water demands unwavering focus here. The paunch hangs precariously from a tripod directly over the central fire, and a flame too high would mean the container burns through, spilling its precious contents. Too low, and the water would never boil, never bring warmth. She catches your eye, a silent nod towards the dwindling woodpile, and you instantly understand. The cottonwood branches you painstakingly gathered yesterday are running dangerously low. Your stomach clenches, not from the familiar ache of hunger, though that's an ever-present companion this time of year, but from the stark, unsettling knowledge that today you'll have to venture farther, maybe a mile or more, to the creek bottom, praying to find any remaining dead wood. The adult men of the camp, including your father, departed 3 days ago, their hopes fixed on the faint tracks of a small buffalo herd sighted to the west. A heavy silence hangs over the camp regarding their return, a quiet tension that only those who live by the hunt truly understand. They might ride back triumphantly, their horses laden with fresh meat, enough to fill every hollow belly in the camp and bring a brief respite from the gnawing hunger. Or, and isn't this just like the plains, they might return empty-handed, with nothing but weary tales of animals too swift of an unexpected cold snap, or of luck that simply abandoned them when it was most desperately needed. You've learned, through many harsh winters, not to let hope bloom too wildly. It's a defense mechanism, perhaps, but the constant diet of pemmican and dried berries, however nourishing, grows tiresome, doesn't it? As you sigh, you shoulder the sturdy leather bag, specifically designed for wood gathering. It's crafted from an entire deer hide, tanned until it feels surprisingly soft, almost like cloth. Yet it possesses a formidable strength, capable of cradling a full armload of frozen, brittle branches. The thick strap digs into your shoulder, a familiar pressure even through the elk hide shirt you wear. A shirt your father killed 2 summers past, its soft leather now, adorned with your sister's delicate beadwork. Those intricate patterns aren't just decorative. They quietly narrate the story of your family's protective medicine. Now comes the hard part. Walking to the creek means leaving the fragile relative warmth of the camp. Here, nestled in the river's bend, dozens of smoldering fires collectively create their own small microclimate, a small pocket of humanity against the vast indifference. Outside that protective circle, the temperature, which might have been a balmy 5 degrees below zero within the camp's shelter, is about to plunge even further. You feel it instantly, the stark truth of the frozen world beyond the relative warmth of camp. 10 degrees colder, at least. The raw prairie air, an insistent presence, patiently waiting to reclaim any human heat. Each step sends a muffled crunch through the thin, brittle crust of snow, your moccasins double-thick buffalo hide, hair still clinging to the inside, for insulation doing their best. Yet, you can't help but feel the brutal contours of every hidden stone, every gnarled root beneath your feet. It's a constant battle, isn't it? Keep moving, and your toes thrum with a kind of bearable warmth. Stop for even a few breaths, and a sharp, icy ache immediately begins its climb, a cold whisper of pain shooting right up from your very soul. The creek itself, when you finally reach its banks, is a strange, beautiful paradox. Sheets of thick ice cling to the edges, silent and unmoving, but the heart of it, a dark, churning ribbon, refuses to yield, flowing swiftly, relentlessly. Steam, a ghostly exhalation, billows where the slightly warmer water grapples with air that's far below freezing, creating a living mist that shimmers like silver threads in the frigid air. Overhead, the cottonwoods stand like ancient sentinels, their smooth, pale bark glowing faintly against the gray sky, branches rattling a dry, skeletal tune in the biting wind. A perfect spot, you think, for finding exactly what you need. Here, scattered amidst the snow and fallen leaves, are the treasures. Deadfall branches. Some are stout as your wrist, perfect for sustained heat. Others no thicker than your thumb, quick to catch a flame. All of it, every last piece, is precious. You kneel, methodical, the raw wood cold against your bare hands, snapping the longer bits across your knee with a satisfying crack. The woven bag grows heavier, each piece a tangible promise. This weight, you know, isn't just wood. It's the very breath of life for your grandfather's old lungs, the shield that guards your baby cousin from the silent, deadly grip of the cold, the gentle heat that keeps the stew simmering, offering warm comfort to hungry bellies. Isn't it always like this? The simple things holding the most profound meaning. The return journey, as always, feels twice as long, twice as arduous. The heavy bag digs into your shoulder, a persistent, aching reminder of its vital contents, each jolt sending a shiver of discomfort. You can feel the first tendrils of sweat, born from exertion, begin to crystallize at your hairline, a sharp, cold prickle against your skin. But then a sight emerges on the horizon that always brings a quiet surge of relief. The smoke, long before the muted shapes of the lodges materialize from the stark landscape. You see them, delicate plumes of white and gray, rising in thin, dancing ribbons against the fading sky. They're quickly snatched by the wind, dissolving into nothingness, yet they unmistakably mark the presence of life, the sacred locations of warmth, of home. By the time your weary feet finally scuff against the packed snow outside your family's lodge, your mother is already deeply immersed in the evening rituals. Her hands move with practiced grace, adjusting the buffalo hide lining, that crucial inner wall that stops just short of the ground. It's a subtle art, this adjustment, designed to create a precise chimney effect, gently coaxing the smoke upwards through the central opening, while simultaneously preventing the biting cold from plummeting straight into your living space. Isn't it amazing, the engineering in simplicity? A subtle, earthy fragrance wafts from within, a testament to her care. She spread fresh sage and sweetgrass across the lodge floor, their dried leaves rustling softly underfoot. These aren't just for beauty. As you walk upon them, they'll release their calming, cleansing scents, artfully masking the inevitable, intimate odors that come from 8 souls sharing such a close, small space. It's a silent, daily act of love, ensuring comfort for everyone. 8 souls, you reflect, make this lodge their sanctuary for the long winter. Your parents, your grandparents, you, your 2 younger sisters, and your baby cousin, a little one whose parents were tragically taken by the spotted sickness just 3 summers past. 8 beating hearts mean a considerable amount of warmth, a shared furnace against the biting cold. But 8 people also mean 8 bodies, breathing, exhaling continuous moisture into the confined space. Without perfect ventilation, that moisture would condense and then freeze solid onto the precious inner walls, a dangerous, silent enemy. Your mother, bless her, has dedicated years to mastering this delicate balance, reading the most subtle shifts in air, knowing precisely when to widen the smoke flaps, when to shift the inner lining, when to stoke the flames, and when to let them subside. With a grunt of effort, you drop the heavy bundle of wood beside the carefully constructed fire pit, and just like that, the familiar, enveloping comfort of the lodge washes over you, warm and tangible, like a thick, fur-lined robe. The contrast is astonishing, almost disorienting. Moments ago, outside, every breath you exhaled blossomed into a visible cloud, a testament to the biting cold. Now, the air within is gentle, warm enough that your words emerge clean, unclouded by visible vapor. It's a magic, really, isn't it? The magic of shelter, of human ingenuity, of knowing you are truly home. The fire, a constant, flickering heart, glows in its stone-lined pit, never leaping too high, perhaps 2 feet at most, but always steady, always sure. Around this benevolent warmth, your family has already settled into their deeply ingrained places. Directly opposite the entrance, that hallowed spot of honor, sits your grandfather, his presence a quiet anchor in the lodge. Your grandmother is to his right, her hands already busy, while your parents occupy the left. You and your sisters, as is tradition, have taken your places closer to the door. Yes, these are the coolest spots, but they are also the positions of responsibility for the young ones, ready to tend the fire's hungry maw, to leap up for any errand, to offer help whenever the adults might need it. Beneath you, a luxurious tapestry of buffalo robes cushions the floor, their thick, shaggy hair facing upwards, creating a deep, soft carpet that insulates your very being from the frozen earth below. But that's just the visible layer, isn't it? Beneath these plush hides lie even more layers of ingenious warmth. Springy mattresses woven from willow branches, carefully crafted to create vital air pockets for insulation. Then, more hides, pressed down, finally meeting the hard, unyielding earth. It's a testament to generations of wisdom, a soft cocoon against the unyielding winter. In the warm glow of the firelight, your grandfather's gnarled, weathered hands move with practiced precision. He's shaping new arrows from ashwood, each shaft a testament to his skill, requiring a perfect straightness, an impeccable balance. It's painstaking work, demanding both patience and deep concentration. And it's a blessing on these endless winter nights. Long after the hunting stories have all been told, when the wind outside begins to howl like the restless voices of ancient spirits. Across from him, your grandmother supervises the stew, a fragrant symphony that's been simmering patiently since first light. The rich, savory aroma of wild onions, earthy prairie turnips, and precious morsels of dried buffalo meat fills every corner of the lodge, making your stomach rumble in anticipation. She stirs slowly with a horned spoon, a deep, resonant clink against the pot's side, tasting, then adding a pinch of wild sage, tasting once more, her expression thoughtful. That pot, by the way, is a marvel in itself, crafted from a buffalo's stomach lining, waterproofed and shaped to hold gallons of life-sustaining nourishment. This, you realize, is the sacred rhythm of winter days, essential work, meticulously performed within the loving circle of family, always with one ear subtly attuned to the relentless dialogue of the wind outside. Its whispers and roars tell you everything you need to know about the night's unfolding story. A low, steady moan means the weather will likely hold its bitter breath, but sharp, sudden gusts, the kind that make the lodge poles groan and creak, signal a storm relentlessly building. And the silence, that absolute, suffocating stillness, that's the chilling harbinger of a cold so profound it can steal a life. As the last vestiges of twilight fade completely, plunging the outside world into an inky blackness, your mother begins her most crucial task, banking the fire for the long, perilous night. This, truly, is the ultimate test of skill, a delicate dance between preserving enough heat to stave off freezing death and conserving the precious fuel that must last until dawn. Too much fire, and you'd all wake choking in a lodge thick with smoke. Too little, and you might not wake at all. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? Her hands move with an inherited wisdom, arranging the glowing coals in a precise pattern, a technique passed down through generations. She places the largest pieces where they'll burn slowest, carefully crafting a deep bed of embers designed to hold their precious heat for countless hours. Around the fire pit's edge, she positions the stones that have been slowly warming all day, their surfaces now radiating a deep, comforting heat. These silent sentinels will continue to share their warmth long after the flames have finally dwindled to nothing, a quiet promise against the encroaching cold. Now, with the lodge's heart secured, the intricate choreography of sleeping arrangements can begin, of warmth, of sharing, of deep, unspoken respect. Here, nestled closest to the flickering heart of the fire, are your grandfather and grandmother, swathed in their thickest, most venerable robes, their breathing a soft, rhythmic comfort. Your parents occupy one side of this intimate space, while you and your sisters claim the other, the tiny form of your baby cousin tucked snugly between you, a tiny furnace drawing warmth from multiple bodies. Each of you possesses your own sleeping robe, a magnificent buffalo hide, its hair still clinging, meticulously tanned until it's as soft and pliable as a favorite blanket. Yet, these aren't just individual coverings. They overlap, intertwine, forming a single, continuous envelope of shared heat, a cocoon against the encroaching chill. Your feet naturally gravitate towards the dancing flames. Your head points stoically towards the outer wall, where the cold truly bites, but your very essence, your body heat, mingles with the life force of your family. Before the deep slumber takes hold, there are sacred rituals, small, vital acts that weave a safety net against the night's dangers. You watch as your mother meticulously checks the door flap, her skilled fingers tying it securely, yet leaving just a whisper of a gap, just enough, you understand, to keep the unseen peril of carbon monoxide at bay. Your father, meanwhile, is engaged in his own crucial calculation, subtly adjusting the smoke hole cover. It's a delicate dance, a precise equation involving the direction of the wind outside, the intensity of the fire within, and the biting temperature beyond your hide walls. Your grandmother, her voice a soft hum against the crackle of the fire, begins to recite the ancient prayers, words that have echoed in lodges like this for generations upon generations. These are words of profound gratitude for another day of life, quiet pleas for protection through the long, dark hours, and a sober acknowledgement of the immense, untamed forces that could, with terrifying ease, simply sweep all of you away. Don't you feel it, that delicate balance, as you pull your own buffalo robe tighter around your shoulders? The rough hair a familiar comfort against your cheek, you're acutely bone-deep aware of the fragile barrier separating life from oblivion. Just 20 feet beyond this circle of warmth, the air is cold enough to claim an exposed life in mere hours. The wind, which now sounds like a living, groaning entity, could effortlessly tear apart the very structure that shelters you. And the fire, your beacon of survival, could just as swiftly consume everything you own. Yet, here you are, in this small, sacred space, warmed by the fragrant wood, the smoldering buffalo chips, the shared breath of your family, and those carefully tended flames. Life continues, vibrant and tenacious. Your youngest sister, her voice a drowsy murmur, recounts a story she heard from the old women, a hushed whisper that melts into the warmth. Your baby cousin makes those tiny, contented sleeping sounds, like soft rustlings in dry leaves. Your grandfather's breathing deepens, settling into the familiar rhythm of dreams. Outside, the wind begins to carry the sharp, clean scent of snow, a silent herald of a storm that could blanket the plains for days. Inside, the fire, your steadfast guardian, settles into a steady orange glow. The stones around its base radiate their stored, gentle heat, a silent testament to the day's sun. And here, 8 people maintain this tiny, vital pocket of warmth in a world that, frankly, seems quite intent on erasing every trace of life. This, you realize, is what true survival looks like. It's not the grand, dramatic struggles you hear about in tales. No, it's the quiet, relentless vigilance of people who understand, down to their very core, that comfort is fleeting, that warmth is a daily earning, that the stark line between life and death often hinges on whether someone remembered to gather enough fuel. If the fire was banked just so, or if the lodge was positioned perfectly to deflect the prevailing icy winds. You close your eyes, the soft rasp of your own robe against your skin, and listen to the familiar symphony of your family settling into sleep. The gentle whisper of robes being adjusted, the soft murmur of your parents' voices, the snap and hiss of the dying fire. Tomorrow will undoubtedly bring the same challenges, the same meticulous dance of survival tasks. But tonight, enveloped by the people who share your life and your fate, you are warm enough, you are safe enough to sleep. The last thing you hear, just before unconsciousness takes you completely, is your grandfather's voice, a breathy whisper, offering thanks to the powerful spirits of the buffalo, those magnificent creatures who gave their hides for your shelter, their fuel for your fire, their meat for your strength. In the morning, if you are truly lucky, you will wake to do it all again, as the quiet embers of one night's life settle into a glowing memory. Let's gently drift toward another story. A profound narrative, preserved in the careful, precise words of a remarkable woman. She lived through these very winters, you see, and chose to share their secrets before they vanished into the swirling winds of time forever. Her name was Wahini, though the white traders and government men, with their own way of naming things, often called her Buffalo Bird Woman. Born in 1839 along the winding Missouri River, she experienced no less than 82 winters, each one a testament to resilience. In her advanced old age, imagine her sitting patiently with anthropologists and historians, her voice a calm, steady current, translating a lifetime of profound survival knowledge into words that translating a lifetime survives that could finally be fried, verbissen for preserve its frageur and it's by you stat with Celeste of the band of sopran with a band with if I'm to pren you I give with up to put up but to add with you to bed you to fab I you to buy you to have be free I am to you time with you got to day I will I my see you I would if it was the way to that you but you the war picture her, if you will, in 1918, an elderly woman, her hands gnarled perhaps, but hands that remember everything. The precise tension needed to expertly scrape a buffalo hide clean, the exact angle for sewing sinew, the smooth, cool feel of cottonwood bark between her fingers as she gathered it for her beloved horses. She spoke slowly, deliberately, each word chosen with an almost sacred care, fully aware that she was among the very last people who had learned these vital skills as a child, who had lived them naturally, as easily as breathing. Her voice, you can almost hear it, carried the immense weight of a history witnessed firsthand. She had gazed upon the vast, incredible herds that once stretched, an unbroken tapestry of life, beyond the furthest horizon. Can you even imagine that? She had felt the very earth tremble, vibrate with the thunder of millions of hooves, a primal rhythm lost to time. And she had, with a heavy heart, watched the last wild buffalo dwindle, then disappear, fading into distant memory and silent museum exhibits. She had lived through the tumultuous treaty years, the confining reservation years, even the harsh, unyielding boarding school years that aggressively attempted to strip away and erase everything she knew, everything she was. Yet here she sits, her resolve unwavering, determined that this invaluable knowledge should survive, even if the way of life that birthed it could not. The tipi, she would tell her eager listeners, was far more than just a simple shelter. It was, in her words, an intricate system. Now, let your own mind drift back with hers, back to a crisp winter, when she was just 12 years old, living with her Lakota relatives on the sweeping western plains. The year was 1851. And her people had been extended a coveted invitation to join a crucial winter hunt, tracking the magnificent buffalo herds that still, in those days, darkened the prairie like immense moving storms. She vividly recalled the meticulous preparations that had begun back in late summer. It wasn't merely about the hunting itself, or the laborious meat-making. No, it was also about the careful, almost reverent selection and treatment of the hides that would eventually become the very fabric of their winter lodges. The buffalo cowhides chosen for these essential teepee covers had to be absolutely perfect, without flaw. Not a single hole from an arrow or a lance point, no telltale scars from desperate battles with wolves, no weak spots where unseen parasites might have damaged the skin. This selection process, she would tell you, was an art form in itself. Experienced women, with their trained eyes, could determine a hide's suitability from 50 paces away, reading the animal's age in the subtle grain of its hair, discerning its health in the color and the texture of its skin. They often preferred your standing beside the fresh kill, the scent of earth and warm blood still clinging to the air around you. It's a cow, ideally, one that's seen perhaps 3 to 5 winters, her hide having reached that perfect sweet spot. Robust and thick, yes, but crucially, still wonderfully elastic. You wouldn't want a hide too old, where the skin has begun to lose its youthful spring, would you? Bull hides, for all their impressive heft, were simply too stiff for a good lodge cover, better suited for the rugged demands of ground cloths or durable storage containers, those heavy-duty applications where sheer strength trumped every other quality. It's all about knowing the animal, understanding its gifts. Now, imagine a woman like Buffalo Bird Woman's grandmother. She possessed an uncanny wisdom, a quiet knowing. You watch her approach a recently taken buffalo, its warmth still radiating into the cool prairie air. She wouldn't need tools, no, just her experienced eyes and, more importantly, her hands. You'd see her run her calloused fingers over the stretched skin, not just feeling for obvious thickness or bounce, but discerning those deeper, almost imperceptible nuances. It's a language only she understood, the subtle give, the inherent tightness that whispered of resilience. This was the hide she'd know instantly, that would shrug off the heaviest rain, stand firm against the relentless winter gales, and ultimately keep a family alive when the snow piled high enough to bury the world. The woman we're speaking of, this beacon of tactile knowledge, was named Corn Silk. Isn't that a beautiful name? Her wisdom wasn't just personal, it was a living history, passed down through generations. Her own grandmother, you see, had sat at those very first treaty meetings with Lewis and Clark, witnessing history unfold. Corn Silk herself had been mentored by women who could still recall a time before metal tools were common, when every task, every intricate detail of hide work was accomplished purely with bone, stone, and meticulously carved wood. Think of that for a moment. Her weathered fingers, like ancient scrolls themselves, could read a buffalo hide simply by touch, discerning its quality with the same clarity that you or I might read a book. Quite remarkable, isn't it? Now, this transformation, turning a raw, weighty hide into a sturdy shelter, wasn't a quick affair. Oh no, it demanded weeks of relentless effort, a true test of endurance. The first crucial step, fleshing. You'd stretch that hide taut, the air thick with the metallic tang of fresh meat and the faint, earthy scent of the animal. With tools crafted from sharpened buffalo leg bones, you'd begin the meticulous, back-breaking work of scraping away every last shred of meat and fat. Buffalo Bird Woman herself remembered the searing ache in her hands, often raw and bleeding by day's end. But this wasn't a task you dared to rush. Even the tiniest speck of fat left behind would inevitably turn rancid, a silent decay that would slowly, irreversibly rot the precious skin from within. And the tools themselves, simply marvels of ingenious, ancient engineering. Imagine holding one in your hand, a dense, smooth buffalo leg bone, honed to a razor-sharp edge at a precisely calculated angle. This wasn't just about scraping. It was about precision, removing the unwanted flesh without ever compromising the integrity of the hide beneath. Different bones, naturally, served different, specialized roles. You'd reach for the broader, heavier tools for that initial, vigorous, rough scraping. Then, for the intricate detail, work those stubborn bits of fat nestled around the edges, or cunningly tucked into the hide's creases. You'd switch to a narrower, more delicate implement. Each woman meticulously curated and fiercely protected her own sets. These invaluable tools, often serving as cherished heirlooms, silently witnessing generations of mothers teaching their daughters. After the grueling fleshing, a different kind of magic began, the braining. You'd take the buffalo's own brain, an almost sacred offering, and transform it into a creamy paste, enriched with bone marrow and the fragrant, earthy scent of prairie sage. This rich mixture would then be meticulously worked into every inch of the hide. This wasn't a one-and-done process. It required dedication, repeated over several sun-drenched days. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, at first, you'd witness the stiff, unyielding skin begin its miraculous transformation, softening, becoming incredibly supple, and yes, even waterproof. The women often gathered a symphony of purpose, their hands moving in rhythmic unison, their voices blending in age-old songs that kept the work steady, a counterpoint to the relentless whisper of the prairie wind and the soft thud of their tools. Now, this brain tanning, you might think it's just tradition, but it's actually rooted in an incredible, intuitive understanding of chemistry. The women didn't need a lab coat to know that buffalo brains held natural enzymes, tiny, invisible workers that were perfect for breaking down the tough proteins, making the raw hide so stiff and brittle. When mixed with that rich marrow fat, these enzymes burrowed deep, deep into every single fiber of the skin. The result? A leather so remarkably soft and pliable, it would stay that way, season after season, even after repeated drenchings and subsequent drying under the watchful prairie sun. And that prairie sage, not just for a pleasant, earthy scent, though it certainly helped, it also contributed natural antibacterial properties, safeguarding the hide for years to come. But the process wasn't over. As Corn Silk herself would tell you, her voice, a soft rasp, carrying the echoes of countless aching muscles, the hide demanded constant attention while it cured. Every single day, without fail, you had to work it. Let it sit too long, just for a moment of neglect, and it would seize up, stiffen, and inevitably crack. Try to rush it, to force the process, and you risked tearing the delicate, softening fibers. It was a delicate dance, a precise rhythm. Everything had to be asterisk, just right, asterisk. The stakes, after all, were incredibly high. An imperfect hide meant your family might not survive the harsh grip of winter. This daily, communal working became a cherished ritual, often taking place in the late afternoons, when the sun's fierce heat began to soften, leaving just enough golden light to see the work through. Imagine the scene: hides stretched taut on sturdy wooden frames, groaning slightly as the women worked them over with smooth, river-worn stones. You'd feel the fibers beneath your fingers gradually yielding, transforming, until the leather achieved an astonishing softness, almost like fine cloth. Even the children had their vital roles, their small hands holding edges taut, their quick feet gathering fresh prairie sage to be rubbed into the hide during those final, fragrant stages of curing. This is how young Buffalo Bird Woman learned. She watched, her eyes wide with curiosity, imitated, helped with the simpler tasks, and yes, she made mistakes, but her grandmother was there, her patient hands gently guiding, correcting, passing down not just a skill, but a way of life. Through this patient apprenticeship, she discovered that not all hide was created equal. The thick, robust skin from the buffalo's backbone, you see, was perfect for the very bottom of the tipi, where it would bravely face the most relentless wear and tear from wind, earth, and daily life. Conversely, the thinner, more delicate hide from the belly found its place higher up, where flexibility was a greater virtue than sheer durability. But her education transcended mere technique. Each scrape, each rub, each daily working was woven into a rich tapestry of stories, ancient songs, and heartfelt prayers. This wasn't just craft. It was a profound act, imbued with a spiritual meaning that stretched far beyond its practical purpose. Buffalo Bird Woman truly grasped the profound sacrifice. She understood, deep in her bones, that the magnificent animals gave their very lives so that her people might have shelter, warmth, and sustenance. Therefore, every single stage of hide preparation became a sacred act of profound gratitude and unwavering respect. Waste wasn't just a practical oversight. It was a grave spiritual offense, a slight against the spirit of the buffalo itself. She learned to read the sky's moods in the way a hide dried, to sense the humidity just by how quickly the brain's solution soaked into the skin, to pace her tireless work by the silent, slow dance of shadows lengthening across the camp. These weren't mere survival tactics. They were deep, inherent connections to the very pulse and rhythm of the natural world. Finally, after weeks of relentless labor, when the hides had achieved that perfect, supple softness, the communal effort shifted to a new, intricate phase. The women would carefully lay them out across the ground, forming a precise, almost mathematical pattern. This was where each piece for the lodge would be meticulously marked for cutting and, eventually, sewn. A typical tipi, you might be surprised to learn, demanded anywhere from 12 to 15 of these perfectly prepared hides, depending on its intended size. And here's the crucial part. Every single seam, every stitch, had to be absolutely flawless. For their thread, they used sinew, the long, incredibly strong tendons, harvested from the buffalo's legs, meticulously cleaned, and then split into strands, so fine they made modern sewing thread feel coarse by comparison. These cutting patterns for the tipis, they weren't just haphazard designs. They were, in their own right, mathematical marvels. Generations of painstaking trial and error had perfected them, aiming to create a structure that would gracefully shed both fierce winds and torrential rains, all while maximizing precious interior space. The basic form, as you can imagine, was a complex cone, yet each individual panel had to be meticulously sized and shaped to contribute to those beautifully smooth, aerodynamic curves. It's what allowed a tipi to stand so resiliently against the prairie's wild moods. Master seamstresses, carrying these intricate blueprints entirely within their minds, could lay out the cuts for even a sprawling 20-foot lodge without a single measuring tool, relying on proportions so deeply ingrained they had become pure instinct. And then the quiet, focused work of sewing would begin. Buffalo Bird Woman recalled the feel of the bone needles in her hand, smooth, strong, perfectly suited for piercing the softened hide. Each stitch, she knew, was a testament to patience, a tiny act of permanence. Every single one had to be flawlessly executed, tight and true, a silent promise against the elements, a perfect seal that would stand guard over the warmth and safety within. It wasn't merely joining pieces of hide. It was weaving together protection, tradition, and the very spirit of survival itself, stitch by painstaking stitch. You're tucked inside, feeling the brutal kiss of winter on the hides. But let's be honest, a simple hide wasn't enough. Not when the wind screamed its icy song across the plains and water. That insidious enemy sought every tiny crack. A poorly sewn tipi wasn't just uncomfortable, it was a death trap, as ice would form, expand, and tear your shelter apart. You'd marvel at the tools of survival. Slender bone needles, not from metal, oh no, but meticulously carved from the hollow leg bones of cranes and other large birds. Their points, finer than any modern steel, yet strong enough to glide through layers of tough buffalo hide, were a testament to ingenuity. Imagine a collection kept in cases adorned with porcupine quills, each needle a precious instrument. Break one during a crucial repair, and you might face days of exposure, waiting for a replacement to be crafted from scratch. Then there was the sinew thread, the very backbone of a strong seam, demanding an almost sacred preparation. Picture the seam, the fresh kill, the long back tendons, carefully stripped from a buffalo carcass, meticulously cleaned of every scrap of meat and fat, then stretched and dried under the relentless sun until they became rigid, almost brittle. But when needed, sections would be rehydrated, soaked until they became supple, then painstakingly split into strands, thick or thin, depending on the task. This wasn't just thread, it was engineering. When wet, it would shrink as it dried, pulling seams impossibly tight, creating a barrier so strong it was virtually waterproof. Yet, even with such masterful construction, the outer cover was merely the first layer of your winter defense. The true genius, as Buffalo Bird Woman so insightfully described, lay in the the inner lining. Imagine a second wall, hanging silently within the lodge, creating a vital airspace between it and the outer cover. This wasn't just another layer, it was an insulating buffer, a thermal barrier that transformed your shelter into a haven. Fashioned from lighter hides or woven materials, it suspended about 6 feet from the ground, gently swaying from the lodge poles. This ingenious design didn't just passively warm you, it actively managed the air. Cold air, inevitably seeping in at ground level, was channeled upward, forced to flow between the two layers, warming as it rose. This created a natural draft, not only drawing out the smoke from your central fire, but also circulating warmth throughout your living space. Isn't that just like nature, to provide such sophisticated climate control? These linings weren't merely functional, they were canvases. You'd see them painted with vibrant family symbols, personal medicine designs, stories etched in pigment for all to behold. Since they faced inward, they became a constant source of beauty and meaning in the utilitarian space of winter survival. Imagine those long, dark winter evenings, the flickering firelight dancing across these painted surfaces, as women meticulously added to or created new elaborate designs, perhaps marking important events or simply infusing beauty into the heart of their home. My grandmother, Buffalo Bird Woman, recounted, taught her that this wasn't a set-and-forget installation. Oh no, it required daily adjustment, a constant conversation with the elements. Too tight against the outer wall, and you'd lose that precious airspace, sacrificing warmth. Too loose, and the cold air would simply spill into the lodge, rendering the system useless. You had to become a reader of the wind, a diviner of the temperature, an interpreter of the fire's dance. This daily adjustment was as integral to the morning ritual as rebuilding the fire. Long before dawn kissed the horizon, the woman of the lodge would rise, stirring the banked coals to life, then meticulously fine-tuning the ventilation system. On days of extreme cold, you might lower the OAN to trap every precious wisp of heat. On blustery days, you'd raise it, coaxing a stronger draft to carry the smoke away, preventing the lodge from becoming an acrid fog. These adjustments weren't guesswork. They stemmed from an intuitive understanding of aerodynamics, honed through years of intimate, practical experience. It was a subtle, complex art, wasn't it? She remembered one particular night. You can almost feel it, the air so frigid, your breath crystallizes instantly. The water containers by the fire's edge, frozen solid, defiant against the meager heat. Outside, the wind didn't just howl. It screamed across the endless prairie, a raw, primeval sound that vibrated through your bones. The very poles of the tipi groaned and creaked, swaying like the masts of a ship battling a furious gale. That night, she watched her adopted grandmother, a quiet, formidable woman named Singing Crow, perform her intricate dance of winter survival. Singing Crow moved with purpose, her first task to tend the fire. She carefully banked it with a precise mixture of buffalo chips and precious cottonwood coal. The chips, you see, provided a slow, steady burn, while the coal offered an intense, sustained heat. She arranged the fuel in a spiral, designed to burn from the outside in, a silent promise of warmth that would endure until dawn without further attention. Singing Crow was a true master of fire management, a skill that meant the stark difference between agonizing misery and tolerable comfort during those interminable winter nights. You could watch her, mesmerized, as she seemed to converse with the flames themselves, reading their shifting colors and subtle behaviors to gauge how long each type of fuel would last, expertly balancing heat output against the ever-present threat of suffocating smoke. Her fire building was an art form, a seamless blend of practical knowledge and an almost mystical understanding of combustion. The buffalo chips she used weren't random roadside droppings, but carefully selected fuel, gathered during the warmth of summer and meticulously stored in *parfleches, those rawhide, waterproof containers. The best, you learn, came from bulls during the rutting season, their rich, diet-yielding chips that burned hot and clean, with minimal smoke, mixed then with those from cows and younger animals for a perfectly balanced, enduring heat. And then there was the cottonwood coal, born from cottonwood logs burned in a controlled, almost ritualistic manner, driving off moisture and volatile compounds to leave behind chunks of nearly pure carbon. This coal, precious beyond measure, took hours of careful tending to produce, yet a mere handful could provide intense warmth through the very coldest night. With the fire established, Singing Crow moved to the next critical adjustment, the smoke flaps at the very top of the teepee. You'd watch as she subtly closed them, not fully, but enough to retain more precious heat, yet still leaving a precise opening, a perfect draft to prevent the terrifying prospect of suffocation. These flaps, ingeniously, were controlled by two long poles that extended from the smoke ears all the way down to ground level, allowing her to make precise adjustments from the warmth and relative comfort of inside the lodge. This smoke flap system was one of the most brilliant aspects of the entire teepee design, truly. The two flaps could be angled like wings to work with the prevailing wind, creating a subtle venturi effect that actually drew smoke from Casti. The fire continues its dance. You observe the intricate design above. Smoke, thick and gray, billows upward and out through the opening at the top of the lodge. Two smoke flaps, cleverly positioned, direct the flow. On a still, peaceful day, you'd see them both open, perfectly balanced. But when the wind whips and snarls outside, one flap closes, angled precisely to catch the breeze, creating a sort of natural exhaust system that keeps the smoke from swirling back down into your breathing space. Isn't that ingenious? The long poles that control these flaps are so finely balanced that even a young child could adjust them from the warmth within. A slight push or pull, ensuring your air stays clear and the heat remains trapped. Imagine, for a moment, the quiet hum of the lodge as a woman, perhaps Singing Crow, her face etched with a lifetime of wisdom, carefully places stones around the fire's dying embers. These aren't just any rocks, they are thermal batteries, silently charging in the flames all day ready to release their stored heat for hours after the fire itself dwindles. Some are smooth, dark river rocks, dense and heavy, absorbing warmth slowly but holding on to it stubbornly, like a secret. Others, rougher pieces of sandstone, heat up quickly, becoming searing hot in mere minutes. These, you might find, are wrapped in soft hide and placed tenderly against the frail bodies of the very young or the very old, offering a direct, comforting warmth. You quickly learn that not all heat is created equal, nor is every stone. Those river rocks, you see, are the marathon runners of warmth, taking their time to reach peak temperature, but then radiating steady comfort through the long, dark hours. Sandstone and granite, on the other hand, are the sprinters quick to heat, but just as eager to release their warmth. The experienced women, those true masters of heat management, maintain entire collections of these geological wonders, each chosen for its unique properties, always kept near the fire ring. Some are tiny, perfect for tucking into bedding or against a chilled hand, wrapped in the softest hide. Others are large, heavy, strategically placed to create warm zones on the lodge floor, a welcome oasis where you can sit or lie, even when the air above feels crisp. It's a subtle art, really, this dance of warmth, maximizing comfort while making every precious piece of fuel count. That night, Buffalo Bird Woman, with eyes that held the wisdom of generations, would later reflect on a profound realization. She understood then that survival in the unforgiving cold wasn't about simply enduring it, but about truly comprehending heat itself. Where did it come from? How did it move? How could you capture it, hold on to it, and use it with utmost prudence? This wasn't just about building a fire, mind you. It was about treating heat as a tangible resource, something you could harvest, store, and distribute. She learned to instinctively sense the subtle betrayals of warmth escaping, the faint, icy currents of air, the way smoke behaved, curling strangely, or the delicate tracery of frost forming on various surfaces inside the lodge. Most importantly, she internalized that warmth wasn't a happenstance, a gift of circumstance, but a meticulously created thing, born from foresight, careful planning, and an unwavering attention to every minute detail. When it came time to sleep, the lodge transformed into a meticulously orchestrated system of shared warmth. 14 souls, 3 families bound by marriage and kinship, settled in for the night. You'd observe the adults pairing off, their thick buffalo robes overlapping, forming sealed envelopes designed to trap every precious particle of body heat. Children, smaller and generating less warmth individually, nestled in between adults or huddled together in groups of 3 or 4, drawing comfort and warmth from sheer proximity. This wasn't some haphazard arrangement, mind you. Every placement followed a complex web of social and practical protocols, ensuring everyone's safety and comfort. Honored elders, their bones feeling the cold more acutely, were given the warmest spots closest to the dying embers, shielded from errant sparks by carefully positioned stones and hides. Young families with wailing infants were situated where they could discreetly tend to the fire's embers through the night without disturbing the deeper sleepers. Single men, ever vigilant, often found their place near the entrance, ready to spring into action at the slightest hint of trouble. And single women, they were nestled in the most protected areas toward the back of the lodge, cocooned in safety. It's amazing, isn't it, how every detail, every position, had a purpose. The buffalo robes themselves were more than just bedding. They were masterpieces of both art and utility. You could almost feel the weight, the luxurious thickness, knowing they came from buffalo, hunted during the bitterest winter months, when their fur was at its absolute densest and most insulating. Prepared with the hair left on, these robes acted like natural sleeping bags, capable of maintaining precious body heat, even when outside temperatures plummeted far below zero. The largest, taken from mature bulls, could easily envelop 4 or 5 people, and many were treasured family heirlooms, passed down through generations, each stitch holding stories. Buffalo Bird Woman, that night, found herself snuggled between 2 older girls, all 3 of them enveloped in a single, enormous robe, the prized winter coat of a massive bull buffalo. The hide, even now, carried the faint, earthy scent of sage smoke and tanning solutions, a comforting perfume of the wild. But oh, it was warm, dry, and so generously large that they could pull it completely over their heads when the cold outside pressed in with icy determination. "We slept like puppies," she would recall later, a soft laugh accompanying the memory, all pressed together, sharing breath and warmth. In the morning, yes, you'd see a delicate layer of frost glittering on the inside walls of the tipi, but underneath that magnificent robe, they were as toasty warm as if they had been sleeping in the height of summer. These shared sleeping arrangements, you quickly realize, forged bonds that extended far beyond the simple necessity of survival. Children learned crucial lessons without even realizing it: to sleep quietly, to lie still, understanding that restless movements could invite cold air into those precious, sealed envelopes of warmth. They learned to coordinate their breathing, to share warmth generously, without selfishly stealing it, to wake gently, without disturbing others. These were not just survival tactics. These were fundamental lessons in cooperation and consideration, building blocks for the social skills essential for successful communal living throughout their lives. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? How even sleep could teach such profound lessons. But warmth, by itself, was never enough to conquer the relentless grip of winter. Food, especially in those lean, icy months, demanded constant, meticulous attention and careful management. Buffalo Bird Woman learned early on to prepare meals that would deliver maximum heat and energy while consuming the absolute minimum of precious fuel. Think of those slow simmering stews, cooking gently all day long, their fragrant steam not only adding vital humidity to the dry indoor air, but also providing internal warmth to anyone lucky enough to partake. Winter cooking was a complex art, balancing precise nutrition with incredible fuel efficiency, and, perhaps most importantly, morale. The long, dark months required specific kinds of foods, dishes that would sustain body heat from the inside out, providing the surge of extra calories needed to fuel the metabolic furnaces that kept people alive in sub-zero temperatures. But more than that, there needed to be enough variety to stave off the insidious, creeping depression and apathy that could be just as dangerous as the cold itself. Those slow-cooking stews, simmering for hours on end, served a multitude of functions. They were incredibly fuel-efficient, utilizing low temperatures for extended periods. They infused the lodge with a constant, comforting humidity, preventing the painful respiratory issues caused by breathing extremely dry winter air. And oh, the appetizing aromas that filled the air. They were a balm for the spirit, a vital tool for maintaining morale during the harshest, most challenging months. That gentle steam even helped keep the teepee's inner lining pliable, preventing it from becoming too dry and brittle. And then, of course, there was pemmican, dried buffalo meat, pounded with rich fat and sweet berries into a concentrated, energy-dense food that could, you learned quickly that survival, especially in the relentless grip of winter, was an art honed by generations. Take pemmican, for instance, a true marvel of ingenuity. You could gnaw on it, cold and unyielding, a dense brick of energy that would keep the shivers at bay. Or you could crumble it into a steaming bowl of hot water, watching as it dissolved into a rich, savory soup, the warmth spreading through your fingers and deep into your belly. And those marrow bones, a gift, really. You'd carefully roast them in the glowing coals, the scent of sizzling fat, a promise in the frigid air. Then crack them open with a satisfying thwack asterisk, to extract the creamy, nutrient-dense fat, pure fuel for the longest, darkest nights. This wasn't just food, it was life itself. The magic of pemmican began not in winter's chill, but under the generous summer sun, when berries hung heavy on the bush and the plains teemed with buffalo. Imagine the effort. You'd slice the fresh meat into long, thin strips, hanging them on sturdy wooden racks to dry until they were as brittle as old parchment, the sun baking away every trace of moisture. Then the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of stone mortar against hide-lined pits, grinding the dried meat into a fine, reddish powder. This would be painstakingly mixed with rendered fat, a handful of sweet, dried berries, perhaps some crushed nuts or roots, then pressed into those compact, indestructible blocks that could sustain you for years. A true testament to foresight, wouldn't you agree? But food, you discovered, was so much more than just sustenance. In winter, it became your most vital medicine. Your grandmother, her hands gnarled by years of tending and gathering, taught you to recognize the subtle whispers of healing in every root, every dried leaf. Certain plants, she'd explain, could keep your blood warm, warding off the deep cold that tried to seep into your bones. Other fats protected your skin from the brutal, cracking winds, while specific broths, simmered with care, prevented that rasping cough from taking root in your chest. You learned to discern them, even when they were mere dusty powders or shriveled bits in a hide pouch, an ancient pharmacy tucked away for the harshest season. Centuries of quiet observation and shared wisdom formed the backbone of this winter nutrition. A profound understanding of which foods offered specific shields against the season's ailments. You'd gather rose hips in the brisk, late autumn air, drying their vibrant crimson shells to provide the essential vitamin C that fought off scurvy, that insidious sickness of long winters. Wild onions and pungent garlic, carefully cached underground, offered potent antibacterial properties, guarding against those pervasive respiratory infections that often plagued the lodge. Various roots and barks, too, were patiently steeped into steaming teas, their warmth not just comforting, but stimulating your circulation, coaxing your body to generate its own internal heat. It was a symphony of natural defense, passed down through time. Then, one day, the world simply vanished. You remember it as clearly as if it were yesterday, a 5-day blizzard that descended with a sudden, savage fury, painting everything white, then burying it. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, clawing at the hide walls of your tipi, until the lower half disappeared completely beneath a mountain of snow. It was terrifying, yes, but also a strange blessing, that deep snow forming an extra layer of insulation, sealing you inside, creating an unexpected sanctuary. For 5 long days, the entrance flap remained shut, a barrier against the maelstrom. No one dared venture out, save for urgent calls of nature, or to gather handfuls of fresh snow to melt for water. This wasn't just a storm. It was a grueling examination, testing every single thread of your winter preparedness. Snow piled up with such dizzying speed that someone had to brave the opening of the smoke hole every few hours, clearing it to prevent the insidious threat of suffocation, a brief, freezing chore that stung your lungs and the wind. It was a living, snarling beast. Opening the entrance flap, even for a fleeting moment, would unleash a furious blizzard asterisk inside asterisk the lodge, a swirling vortex of ice crystals that instantly dropped the temperature, soaking everyone nearby. The tipi, for those 5 days, became more than just shelter. It was your entire world, a life support system. Every single thing needed for survival had to be meticulously accounted for, either within the tipi's comforting circle or instantly accessible just outside. Fuel, precious and finite, was rationed with the gravest care, stretched to last until the storm finally broke. Meals were prepared with absolute minimum fuss, designed to keep you fed without risking dangerous excursions into the whiteout. And water, that most basic necessity, meant constantly melting snow, a process that devoured even more fuel and demanded watchful attention to prevent the lodge floor from becoming a frigid, slushy mess. It was a constant, vigilant dance with the elements, a tense rhythm of survival. But what do you do when the world outside ceases to exist? Inside the tipi, a different kind of life unfolded. You lived on your stored pemmican and dried berries, yes, but more importantly, you lived on shared stories. The flickering firelight cast dancing shadows as voices murmured, weaving tales of genealogies stretching back 7 generations, tracing the intricate family trees that connected everyone in the circle. You learned the secret meanings behind every design etched onto clothing, heard the specific prayers whispered for various kinds of weather. The enforced confinement, rather than a burden, became a profound classroom, a sacred space where the deepest cultural knowledge was lovingly transmitted, with no hunting, no traveling, no possibility of work outside. The lodge transformed into a vibrant academy. Elders, their eyes gleaming in the firelight, shared origin stories that explained the customs shaping your world, unveiled the spiritual significance of sacred patterns, and recounted the delicate relationships between families and clans. You, along with the other children, absorbed not just the bare facts of your heritage, but the emotional and spiritual dimensions that gave it life. You learned which stories were exclusive to winter's embrace, which songs were sung for different occasions, and how to distinguish designs that carried potent spiritual power from those that were merely decorative. You learned the subtle nuances of dialect, a soft inflection that might betray a speaker's tribal affiliation, the elegant hand signs that allowed communication across the plains, bridging language barriers, and the complex unwritten protocols that governed interactions between different social groups. It was an education not found in books, but etched into the very fabric of your being. And through it all, a quiet understanding bloomed within you. Winter, you realized, was not solely about keeping the body warm. It was about something far more profound. It was about staying human. It was a moment of clarity, a quiet understanding that settled deep within you. The cold, you knew, could indeed freeze your flesh, numb your fingers and toes until they ached. But the crushing darkness and the isolating expanse of the storm could, just as surely, freeze your spirit, dimming the inner light that made you, well, you. The tipi, then, had to be more than just a sturdy shelter against the elements. It had to be a vibrant space where people could truly live not merely endure. It was an insight that spoke to the very core of successful winter survival in traditional cultures. Physical warmth, you understood, was only half the equation. Mental and spiritual well-being, that unwavering spark of hope and connection, proved equally vital for navigating the long, bleak months of cold and darkness. Your tipi, you realized, had to function as more than just a sturdy shield against the wind and snow. It needed to be a living, breathing space where human relationships could flourish, where the threads of culture could be meticulously maintained, where the flame of hope could be vigilantly tended through the most challenging times. It had to be a vessel for the human spirit, resilient and unbroken. Then, as abruptly as it began, the tempest quieted. When the storm finally passed, the world that emerged was utterly transformed, almost alien. Snow had drifted 20 feet high in some places, sculpted by the wind into ethereal, unfamiliar shapes that shimmered under a blindingly bright sun. Yet, your tipi had held fast, a steadfast anchor in the vast white. The fire, against all odds, had burned on, and the people, against all expectations, had survived. Life, you knew, would continue. The post-storm emergence was always a moment of quiet celebration and profound renewal, a collective exhale. After days of confinement, stepping out into that world remade by wind and snow was like walking onto a completely new planet. Alien, yes, but stunningly beautiful in its pristine, untouched silence. The familiar landmarks were gone, buried deep or reshaped into something entirely new. But there was no time for lingering awe. The work began immediately, shoveling paths between lodges, locating cached supplies that had disappeared under drifts, checking on the horses and other animals who had weathered the storm in their own shelters. You, Buffalo Bird Woman, would live through 68 more winters after that one, each one teaching you new subtleties of survival, new depths of human resilience. You see her, perhaps, as a young girl, feeling the crisp bite of the plains wind on her cheeks, learning early on that life out here, on the vast, breathing prairie, hinged on a delicate balance, the warmth that sustained you against the cold that could claim you. Her 68 winters, stretching out across the landscape of the 19th and early 20th centuries, witnessed a transformation so profound it might make your head spin. Imagine standing on a threshold, watching as an entire way of life, ancient as the buffalo paths, simply melted away like snow under a spring sun. It truly was one of humanity's most dramatic shifts, wasn't it? Suddenly, you're not just observing, you're experiencing the earth-shattering changes she endured. You feel the tremor of the ground beneath you, not from thundering hooves, but from the iron wheels of a train, announcing an end to the endless herds. Buffalo Bird Woman watched as the age-old rhythms of nomadic existence, free and unbound, were slowly, relentlessly, squeezed into the rigid geometry of reservation lines. You remember the vastness, the herds that darkened the horizon, then you see them dwindle, fragment, until only echoes of their presence remained. It's a loss that hangs heavy in the air, a silent ache. The landscape itself seemed to rewrite itself before her eyes. Imagine the raw, open expanse suddenly crisscrossed by steel tracks, dotted with the stark, unyielding presence of military forts. Then came the missionaries, their voices carrying a different kind of gospel, followed by government schools, designed, it seemed, to erase the very language of her heart, the traditions woven into her childhood. Yet, through this relentless tide of change, you observe her quiet resilience. She didn't just cling to the old ways. She refined them, sharpened them, an inner flame refusing to be extinguished, even as the wild spaces shrank and the familiar materials vanished like ghosts. Her hands, calloused and wise, found new purpose. You might wonder, how does one adapt when the very essence of your craft disappears? When the majestic buffalo, once the heartbeat of her people, became a memory, she learned to coax warmth and utility from tough cattle hides, each stitch a testament to ingenuity. When traditional remedies or tools became scarce, she wasn't defeated. Instead, she explored, experimented with substitutes, her mind a workshop of endless possibilities. The core wisdom, you see, that deep understanding of survival, remained utterly constant, merely finding new forms. Years later, sitting quietly with those who came to record her stories, her voice, though aged, carried the profound authority of someone who had truly walked between worlds. You listen as she recounts sleeping snugly inside a hide tipi, the air scented with wood smoke, during an era when buffalo roamed unbounded and the prairie stretched, unmarked, to the horizon. But then, she tells you, she also spent nights in government-built houses, stiff and strange, with their manufactured wood stoves and clear, cold glass windows. The contrast, she implies, wasn't merely noticeable. It was a chasm. These new government homes, you might concede, certainly offered an easier sort of warmth initially. They demanded less constant stoking, less daily labor, less intimate knowledge of fire and air. But a subtle tension lingers in her words, an underlying fragility. Why? Because you realize these structures were utterly beholden to external lifelines, factory-made stoves, lumber cut from distant forests, coal or wood that had to be bought, hauled, or traded for. When those distant chains snapped, as they often did, these modern shelters, so seemingly robust, turned cold and unforgiving, offering scant solace against the plains' true fury. The tipi, by contrast, was a masterpiece of self-sufficiency. Imagine living in a home that drew its very existence from the land around it. Hides and poles, all locally sourced, ready to be shaped by skilled hands. Sure, it demanded more from you, more profound knowledge, more intricate skill to manage its inner climate, to understand the drafts and the draw of the smoke. But once that expertise was mastered, you gained reliable comfort, a steady warmth even as blizzards howled and temperatures plummeted outside. And the true genius, its portability, a home that moved with the seasons, with the herds, with the very rhythm of life itself. Yes, she might say, her gaze steady, the old way demanded more work, more knowledge, more cooperation among us. But listen closely now, because this is crucial. It wasn't harder living. It was different living. You feel the weight of that distinction. We knew precisely how to find comfort with what the earth offered. We knew how to seek warmth in the most biting cold, how to craft a sanctuary that flowed with the seasons and the migrations of the animals we followed. It was a profound difference, a shift in perspective that you can almost feel settling in your bones. That subtle yet monumental distinction between harder and different was the very lens through which she processed the world crumbling and reforming around her. You recognize that the traditional life wasn't some primitive struggle. It simply required a different set of skills, an alternative way of perceiving comfort and security. It certainly wasn't inherently more difficult, nor less satisfying than the shiny new alternatives. In fact, you realize it offered a deeper, more resilient kind of security. Its foundation was knowledge, the kind you could apply anywhere, utilizing resources that were always at hand, never dependent on some fragile, distant supply chain. Her voice, remarkably, lives on, preserved in field recordings made when she was nearly 80. You can still hear the gentle cadence of the plains wind in her speech. There's a patience there, too, the measured calm of someone who could read the shifting weather in a whisper of grass, who could discern the quality of firewood simply by its earthy scent. She knew, with an instinct refined over decades, the exact moment the day's warmth began to fade, signaling the time to meticulously prepare for another night of careful warmth management. Those scratchy recordings, captured on primitive equipment in the early 20th century, don't just hold her words, they hold echoes of her world, even through the crackle and hiss of that early technology. You sense the rhythmic flow of nomadic life in her speech patterns, the deep reverence for natural phenomena, the seamless weave of practical knowledge with spiritual understanding. It's a voice imbued with the undeniable authority of lived experience, yet also tinged with the quiet sorrow of knowledge slowly slipping away. People mistakenly believe we were perpetually cold, she concludes, a gentle challenge in her tone. But that's simply untrue. We generated warmth when it was needed. We found comfort when comfort was required. We knew how to embrace winter, not retreat from it, as her story gently settles into the quiet chambers of your memory. You can almost conjure her image from that distant winter. A young girl, her breath misting in the frigid air, her small hands already growing strong from the endless, vital work of preparing hides, gathering wood, her mind a sponge, absorbing the intricate wisdom that transformed mere animal skins and sturdy poles into the living, breathing homes that could shelter entire families through the most brutal seasons the planet could unleash. Outside the canvas of her memory, the same wind still whispers across the same prairie, but now it finds different shelters, different fires flickering in unfamiliar hearths, different dreams of warmth. Yet you realize, somewhere within the intricate tapestry of her words, in the enduring rhythm of her recollections, that ancient knowledge persists. It's the profound understanding that comfort isn't merely a given, that true warmth must be diligently earned, that survival demands not just raw courage, but a deep well of wisdom, carefully passed down like the most precious, fragile gift imaginable from one generation to the next. Buffalo Bird Woman's shared wisdom transcends mere historical curiosity, doesn't it? It embodies a way of understanding the intricate dance between humanity and its environment that delves far beyond simple survival techniques. Her tipi wasn't just a physical shelter. It was a philosophy made manifest, a tangible demonstration that human beings could thrive comfortably and sustainably in even the harshest environments, not by battling against natural forces, but by intimately working with them. In our current era of meticulously climate-controlled buildings and complex globalized supply chains, her insights offer a profoundly different lens through which to view what it truly means to be at home in the world. You consider her words. She understood that genuine security doesn't come from insulating yourself against nature, but from possessing a deep, intuitive knowledge of how to collaborate with it. Her warmth wasn't something purchased from a store or delivered by a truck. It was created, not supplied, but earned through profound understanding, honed skill, and an unwavering attention to the subtle, vital relationships between fire, air, shelter, and the very human bodies seeking protection. Her quiet voice gently recedes, A faint rustle in the breeze, perhaps, reminding you that her true legacy isn't etched in stone or timber, but in the profound wisdom she chose to share. It's the understanding that humans possess an extraordinary capacity for adaptation, that genuine comfort can be meticulously crafted from the most unassuming materials. Survival, you realize, isn't merely about enduring. It's an intricate art form, a dance between practical skill, deep patience, and an almost sacred respect for the colossal forces that shape our very world. And now, as her memory softens around the edges of your mind, let's drift a little deeper, shall we? Into a historical puzzle that has intrigued the sharpest minds for generations. How did such deceptively simple structures manage to create microclimates so perfectly tailored for human survival? Imagine now, if you will, the vast, undulating prairie of Montana, a crisp summer morning in 1923, and you are kneeling amidst the dukest buffalo grass. The sun, a warm benediction on your shoulders, whispers promises of the day, but beneath your curious hands, the ancient soil holds a different narrative, chilling tales of winter nights, so impossibly cold they defy belief. Here, sprawling across a gentle rise, overlooking a murmuring creek, you uncover the subtle evidence of an ancestral winter camp, faint circles of stones that once anchored robust tipi, the distinct, fire-blackened earth where families would huddle for warmth, and countless fragments of frowns of flamens of salons of suolence by it is so, and with so of go with the bow. A delicate sheen of morning dew clings to every blade of grass, each a tiny prism, catching and scattering the early light, creating a sparkling tapestry around you. Your trowel scrapes softly, a gentle whisper against something solid just beneath the surface. You unearth another stone, worn smooth by eons of biting wind and relentless weather. But this one, you instantly sense, is uniquely different. Unlike the jagged fieldstones scattered haphazardly across the prairie, this rock bears the unmistakable signature of human intent. It's an almost perfect ovoid, fitting snugly into your cupped palms. Its weight, speaking of hours spent absorbing and patiently radiating precious heat. Its subtle scorch marks, a silent testament to ancient flames and family gatherings lost to the relentless march of time. Dr. James Willard Schultz, the seasoned ethnography working quietly beside you, points with a weathered finger to a much larger ring of stones, easily 40 feet in circumference. A large family lodge, he murmurs, his voice laced with the quiet reverence of someone who has actually slept in such structures, lived within their ingenious embrace, probably housed 12 to 15 people through the brutal winter of 1868, maybe 69. His fingers, etched with years of fieldwork, trace the ancient arc of stones with the intimacy of someone reading a cherished text. Each precise placement, a vital part of a grand narrative. The larger stones, strategically positioned to trap and hold the most heat. The smaller ones, carefully arranged to create precise gaps, subtly controlling the vital airflow, much like the meticulously tuned stops of a massive, living organ. But as your brush delicately sweeps away more soil from the central fire pit, questions begin to multiply around you, like shadows lengthening in the fading evening light. The fire ring, you note with a rising sense of bewilderment, is surprisingly small, barely 3 feet across. How on earth, you ponder, could such a modest blaze possibly warm a space large enough for 15 people when outside temperatures plummeted to a soul-numbing 30 degrees below zero? The very mathematics seem impossible. The physics defiant of everything you thought you understood about heat and basic shelter. Your modern training, your textbooks, suggest a fire of this diminutive size would be adequate for perhaps 3 or 4 people, and only then in relatively mild conditions. Yet, countless historical accounts vividly describe large families living in surprising comfort around precisely such fires, surviving Montana winters that routinely killed cattle by the thousands and froze mighty rivers solid for months on end. The sheer discrepancy, a phantom chill, haunts you as you meticulously measure and photograph each notation in your field, an unspoken admission of how much remains tantalizingly unknown of the incredible technologies that Sanandaman Lina, with counterny of planiana of millennia, but being in, if but as so you will know, will son well and in within, with it to you, to again it and we can I have you, to have you, with I have to, and I do, it do, oh you, to it was to wolf, if you buy you, you would have thought, mistake you got to go, back to put you, tidy you, they out of the tell you, I wasn't for you to the fire would have been if. This, then, is the profound mystery that has quietly haunted researchers for decades. It's the enigma of a tipi heating system, so remarkably efficient that entire families survived in comfort through conditions that would spell certain doom for modern campers in mere hours. Yet, infuriatingly, it left almost no physical trace for archaeologists to actually study. The organic materials, the buffalo hides, the sturdy wooden poles, the intricately woven linings and clever windscreens have long since gently returned to the earth, leaving behind only scattered stones and fire-stained soil. And, of course, the persistent, nagging questions of how, precisely, it all worked together in such elegant harmony. The archaeological record, though sparse, teases you with its fragmented whispers. Here, you find a concentration of charcoal that strongly suggests a fire burned not for mere hours, but for days, tended with such exquisite skill that it never blazed high enough to waste precious fuel, nor died low enough to lose its life-giving warmth. There, a subtle pattern of discoloration in the soil might indicate where thick buffalo robes were meticulously arranged, or where carefully heated stones were buried to warm the sleeping areas. Each clue is undeniably tantalizing, yet frustratingly incomplete, like trying to painstakingly reconstruct a magnificent symphony from a few scattered, single notes found discarded on a dusty theater floor. The very first, crucial clue, however, lies not in the structures themselves, but in their deliberate placement. Every ancient campsite archaeologists have meticulously studied reveals the same profound attention to microtopography. These vital tipis were never randomly scattered across the vast landscape. Oh no, they were positioned with an almost scientific precision, a deep understanding of the land, to cunningly exploit every conceivable source of natural warmth and vital protection. Winter camps, for instance, invariably cluster in the sheltered river valleys, where the land itself provides natural windbreaks and where the towering cottonwood trees offer a readily available supply of fuel. More specifically, they consistently occupy the south-facing slopes just above the floodplain. This strategic elevation is high enough to cleverly avoid the coldest air, which always settles like a heavy blanket in low places, yet low enough to be perfectly sheltered from the relentless, brutal prairie winds. The sheer precision of this ancient placement only truly becomes astonishingly apparent when you fully grasp the intricate thermal geography of winter landscapes, the almost fluid way cold air behaves like a slow-moving, invisible liquid, pooling in depressions and flowing silently down watercourses in currents utterly imperceptible to the untrained eye. Dr. Sarah Winnemucca, a brilliant Paiute consultant who worked alongside early anthropological expeditions, once explained this profound logic with the crystalline clarity of inherited and willand. Cold air flows like water, she stated simply. It runs downhill and pools in the bottoms. Warm air rises and gets blown away by wind. The perfect place for a winter lodge is where you can catch the warm air before it escapes, but avoid the cold air that wants to settle. Her words carry the accumulated life or death observations of countless generations, people who literally lived or died by their profound understanding of these invisible rivers of temperature that flow across the landscape every single winter night. This intuitive grasp of thermodynamics was so incredibly sophisticated that it rivals, even in some ways, modern meteorological science. These plains peoples had not only identified, but had learned to brilliantly exploit the very temperature inversions that commonly occur in mountain valleys, the subtle shifts in wind direction. You can almost feel the biting wind whip across the open plains, a chill that seeps into your bones, especially as the sun dips below the horizon. But for those who truly understood this landscape, the difference between a restless, freezing night and one of comfortable rest lay not just in a sturdy shelter, but in the ground itself. They knew, intimately, the subtle variations in earth temperature, how a dip where cold air settled could become a death trap, even if shielded from the north wind. Imagine standing on a hillside, facing the first light of morning. You'd instantly feel, a warmth 10 degrees higher than a seemingly identical slope catching the afternoon sun. Modern weather stations and thermal imaging merely confirm what indigenous knowledge keepers understood intuitively. The microclimates within a single valley could swing by 20 degrees or more on a still winter's night. Survival often hinged not on more fuel or better hides, but on reading these invisible thermal maps, placing your home in the right spot to capture warmth and deflect the encroaching cold. Yet, this ingenious site selection was only the overture to a deeper symphony of warmth. Archaeological whispers suggest the heating of a tipi involved technologies and techniques so deeply ingrained, so utterly commonplace, that perhaps they simply went unnoticed by European observers. Or, dare we consider, they were deliberately shrouded from the casual gaze. Let's be honest, centuries of difficult encounters had taught indigenous communities a bitter lesson about visitors who observed without truly seeing, who grasped surface practices without ever comprehending the profound knowledge that made them effective. Far too often, early European accounts dismissively describe what appeared to be simple fires and basic shelters, missing entirely the sophisticated engineering that hummed beneath the apparent simplicity. Those observers simply lacked the experiential framework to recognize advanced technology when it didn't mirror their own traditions. Consider, for a moment, the quiet enigma of the heating stones. At dozens of winter encampments, archaeologists have unearthed caches of smooth river rocks, nestled intimately in and around former fire pits. These aren't just any rocks. They bear the undeniable scars of repeated heating, delicate stress fractures from thermal expansion, dark scorch marks from direct flame contact, sometimes even faint, greasy traces of animal fat used to keep them from cracking. They vary in size, from a hen's egg to a human head. This is key, they are consistently rocks with specific, desirable thermal properties. You'd find sandstone, quick to absorb heat, quartzite, a stubborn keeper of warmth for hours, and granite, offering a steady, dependable glow. Their selection was no accident. Someone had meticulously tested these materials, learned their unique characteristics, and chosen them with the deliberate care of an engineer selecting components for a complex, vital system. Talk about precision, right? Each type of stone played a crucial, distinct role in this intricate heating system. Imagine the sandstone, relatively low in density, porous, absorbing the fire's embrace quickly. It provided that immediate, comforting rush of warmth when the evening flames first danced. Then there was the quartzite, dense and crystalline, a slow burner, you might say. It absorbed heat at a more measured pace, but once saturated, stubbornly clung to that warmth through the long, unforgiving winter night, becoming the thermal backbone of the sleeping area. Finally, the granite, with its even texture and stable composition, delivered a steady, predictable heat that could be trusted not to violently crack or explode when subjected to the relentless thermal stress of repeated heating and cooling cycles. A true masterclass in material science, wouldn't you say? But how were these precious stones actually put to use? Buffalo Bird Woman's poignant testimony offers a vital hint. The grandmother stones slept with us in the coldest months. Other accounts paint vivid pictures, rocks heated in the central fire, then carefully wrapped in insulating hides, placed strategically against the bodies of infants and elders. Some narrate stones arranged around the sleeping area, crafting zones of radiant heat that would steadfastly endure through the darkest hours of night. This technique demanded extraordinary skill and profound knowledge. Stones heated too quickly could shatter explosively, sending dangerous fragments careening through the confined space of the tipi. Stones made too hot could silently burn through the precious buffalo hides used for wrapping, or far worse, inflict terrible burns on the very people they were meant to comfort. The correct temperature had to be judged by intuition, by touch, by the particular sizzle a water droplet made on its surface, and by its appearance in the flickering firelight. A deep, steady red spoke of perfect readiness, not the bright, alarming orange that screamed of dangerous overheating. Why does something so simple always demand such mastery? The very act of wrapping these heated stones was an art form in itself, a seamless blend of materials, science, and practical medicine. Different hides, of course, offered different insulating properties. Thick, resilient buffalo hide enveloped stones destined to be placed near children, offering a gentle, sustained warmth. Thinner, more pliable deer hide cradled stones that adults could tolerate at higher, more intense temperatures. Even the fat used to treat these wrapping materials required careful consideration. Bear fat, for instance, possessed the unique property of remaining pliable even in extreme cold. Buffalo tallow provided a steady, consistent insulation, while certain plant oils prevented the hide from becoming brittle and cracking over time. It's a marvel, truly, the sheer depth of their applied knowledge. Yet, the archaeological evidence hints at something even more astonishingly sophisticated. At several sites, researchers have uncovered meticulously constructed stone chambers buried beneath what were once tipi floors. These weren't mere holes. They were stone-lined pits, filled with carefully selected rocks, and crucially, connected to the central fire pit by subterranean channels. These channels seemed expressly designed to conduct heat underground. Such installations, if that's what they truly were would have created an early form of radiant floor heating capable of warming the sleeping area for hours, long after the surface fire had dwindled to mere embers.